Welcome to Telling the Tale. I'm your host, Mitchell Farley Wolfe, and I'm joined, as always, by Dustin Jackson.
I'm Dustin, and I got no joke this week.
That's great, because I'm going to continue the intro. This is a podcast where we're going to cover every single Telltale video game from when they were active producing video games, and this week we're covering The Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 4, Amid the Ruins, released on July 22nd, 2014, directed by Jason Latino, designed by Mark Darren, and written by J.T. Petty and Eric Sturp. Hey, Dustin, this one is a bummer.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this, Mitch. When you say this episode is a bummer, do you mean just in terms of what happens in it, or the quality of the episode?
Well, definitely the second. The quality we can talk about.
Yeah, I think this is a very sloppy, not very good episode, at least in comparison to other Walking Dead episodes.
Okay, I'm very interested in this take. I feel like I'm poised to agree with that, I think. But I haven't been thinking about it in those strict terms quite so much.
Yeah, it's like even the first time I played it, I feel like it was the low point for me. But even playing it again now, I'm like picking out more things I didn't even remember, and it's kind of like Moai Better Blues, where it's like on its own, it's like fine, I guess, but just in comparison to like we had some really good times with Sam and Max before that, so that just was the low point for Sam and Max. I feel like this episode isn't like horrendous. It's not like I'd even say it's better than Moai Better Blues, but boy, there's a lot that I don't like about it.
Yeah, I think that just in addition to having a lot of potential character deaths, depending on how you play it, a lot of bad times in general. In addition to all that, it just doesn't feel like it has a great flow. I think the writing, I never say this on the Walking Dead episodes, but the writing in this one felt noticeably more stilted than normal. And I'm talking specifically about the dialogue, not necessarily plot stuff. Everything that this character, who we met last episode and did not say very much during last episode, Jane, says, holy crap, it takes me out of it hard. It was episode 4 of season 1 that we had a similar character that we debated the merits of. And remind me of what her name was?
Molly.
Okay, yeah, Molly came in, and she was this badass trooper of a person, right? Like a seemingly special ops trained, but is also just sort of from really humble beginnings and has no training. And like she's an assassin and a survivor and everything. And it just seemed really weird to see this person so early in the apocalypse. This person already exists somehow. It might seem like, okay, we're building toward a time where everyone is this, but not yet. And with Jane, we're seeing that a little bit. It's a lot calmer, and she's not as overpowered, but I think she is a lot more like, oh, you're really all the way in already in being this kind of person. And she don't even get her started on her dead sister, which is
she will go on and on.
That's a terrible sentence to say and laugh through, but also it's every sentence that she says.
Yeah, if this were someone in real life, I'd be more like, oh, I'm so sorry for you. But with
the first couple
pretend
times,
person, yeah, with a pretend person in a video game, I'm like, all right, maybe give me a little more to work with.
Yeah,
but that being said, I do think Jane, to me anyway, feels like a better version of Molly. She feels a little more of a realistic. She's like you said, she's not so overpowered. She just knows some strategies and what to do.
Yeah,
she has more flaws. She has like a story to her. Not that Molly didn't, but I feel like with Jane, it feels a little more real, I guess, for lack of a better word. Molly felt like a character in this world. Jane feels like someone who could actually exist.
Jane feels like the concept of having a dead sister.
That's true. I never thought about it before.
It's essence of sister death, just like in perfume form.
Yeah, you can take one look at Jane and say, wow, now I know what it's like to have a dead sister. You talk about her a lot.
Just it's bewildering. It's every other sentence. She's like, Jamie would have loved this. And then, like, she gets choked up and doesn't finish her sentence. Like, really? On the 5th mention of Jamie, you're gonna not finish your sentence and get choked up about it?
Well,
Jamie had
really
a leather coat once. You can't do that about leather coats.
What I think is really interesting about that is Jane is the one who's... we find out that she left her sister behind.
Mm-hmm. This is a weird way to start talking about the plot of the episode, but I think talking about Jane is very important and interesting in and of itself. So yeah, go ahead. We'll dive in here first.
Yeah, this is a very Jane-heavy episode, but so we find out that Jane, for a long time, was really pushing her sister, getting her going, having hope for her. But then one time... Sorry, I had something in my throat. Ooh. Anyway, one time, they're, like, stuck on a roof, cornered by walkers, and her sister Jamie is like, nah, I'm not really feeling it. I'm a little sad. So Jane is like, all right, fine. Well, I can't do anything to help you this time. And she left her behind, and that didn't work out so good for her. So this plays a big part in who Jane is. She's saying, don't let other people drag you down with them. And I think that's interesting to me because she let her sister go, and now she can do anything but let it go.
Oh, okay. That's a very interesting advanced take. I love that, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to... Obviously, she lost someone who was important to her. It makes sense to talk about them, but, maybe that's why. Maybe at the time, she was like, all right, well, I gotta move on without you. I gotta look out for my safety. And now that just really haunts her. Like, she tells Clementine, like, that's the best way to go about it. But what the results that came from that just, like, eat away at her. And and Jane's been alone by herself, like, for a while. She says she's a loner. So maybe just being here with other people and with Clementine is kind of coaxing her to talk about these things that she's been wanting to talk about for so long to somebody.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like if your friend gets drunk and they start talking about, like, their middle school ex-girlfriend just over and over again. It's like, okay, cool, but, like, why today? It's been a long time since middle school, maybe.
Yeah, but now they just have, like, the opportunity and someone who will listen, so all those bottled up thoughts that they've had on it really start coming out now that they have that opportunity. So it's a little silly, but I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I think that the amount
they could have cooled it,
the sheer number of times that she does exactly like Jamie was good at walking. Like, you need to
She also had 2
down.
feet for walking.
Jamie was always putting her left foot in front of her right foot in order to propel her forward and move through the wilderness, just like we're doing right now. It
Classic
all brings
Jamie.
me back to her.
Yeah, I wonder if this is kind of jumping a lot ahead to near the ending, but Jane and Luke end up making sex with one another.
Yes.
I wonder if that's all she would talk about to it. Like, maybe they didn't even have sex and she was just like, Jamie this, Jamie that.
If I were Luke, I would not have sex if that were the case.
Yeah, I would be like, let's talk about something else, I think.
Yeah, let's try a different tack here. Let's take it in a different direction.
Look, Jane, you're great, but I feel like I'm not going to be in the mood after this next sentence you're about to say.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about that scene later,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a big moment. But Jamie, Jane's sister, exists in the dialogue primarily to get you thinking about Sarah in this way.
Yeah.
That's the goal with that dialogue choice. It's ever present just in order to get you as Clementine thinking about, okay, is Sarah like my Jamie? Is she the sister who I can say, you have to jump over a roof right now, and if I can't throw her and I can't just stay with her and I can't fight him off and I have to jump in order to live and she won't do it, what do I do next? And you're put in a couple situations with Sarah this episode, and I believe that she can live through this episode, but I'll tell you right now, she did not live through mine.
Want to know something really silly? She dies either way in this episode at the same point. Like the part where she falls off the balcony and gets chomped by walkers. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the part that is where she died, but I picked to save Jane in that moment. We can talk about that as we talk about the plot. I feel like we're really getting ahead of ourselves now.
There's just so much to talk about.
Because the big thing, if you listen to last episode, that you already know we are going to have hugely different parts of this episode about, is what happens to Sarita.
Yeah.
So, Dustin, Mitch, I'm still mad at you.
This is why I did not want to tell you why.
Yeah.
I apologize for my choice, but...
Yeah, I'm still mad. Whatever.
Yeah, I get it. I'm sorry, but that's,
well,
that's the way things played out. So, Mitch, why don't you tell us how it played out for you?
Okay, so if you didn't listen to last episode, the way that ended was you're given a choice as you're covered in walker guts. You're filtering through a huge swarm of walkers, also known as zombies, and Sarita gets bitten like in slow motion on her wrist, and you realize, well, that's a walker bite, and you have the option of taking your little axe and axing either the walker's head or Sarita's arm, and to reestablish why I did what I did. It was established earlier in that episode that if you amputate the infected area very quickly, you don't necessarily have to become a walker. Because there is, it feels magical, but it is a physical basis of zombification in this universe, where if you just don't let the infection actually travel through your entire body, it's still just in the arm, and you've cut it off.
Yeah, we heard that's how Reggie survived.
Right, yeah, Reggie survived that way, and I'm thinking, okay, you've literally just given me the information to know what to do here.
So how did that work out?
It didn't work out, Dustin.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel pretty betrayed by that narratively, honestly. Why show me the Reggie thing if that's clearly...
I 100% agree. That's now you are seeing why I did not slice off Sarita's wrist.
Well, okay, so here's what happened. I cut off her arm, and it's like 3/4 of the way up to the elbow. It's like after the elbow, but it's close to the elbow. And she's screaming. She's visibly upset about it.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah. And she's flailing around, which is exactly not what you want to do if you want to not be eaten by zombies.
Yeah.
So at that point, she's just like screaming, and 5 more zombies immediately bite her all over her body.
Yeah.
And Kenny runs over, horrifyingly mad at Clementine, and does manage to shove all the other zombies away. But then now you're in a situation where okay, Sarita's dying of blood loss from the arm thing, and also has a bunch of other zombie bites that you can't amputate all of. you have
she'd
to
be like a
kill
head
her.
afterwards.
Yeah, which, hey, it's happened with, like, people have been in little like duffel bags as heads before. We've seen
That's
that.
true.
Maybe Kenny should have considered that. He's
Yeah,
like a weird enough
that's what
guy
they
to
were
pull that
hinting
off.
We can make this work.
So you do have to axe Sarita right in the dome.
Yeah.
Which
So
I always think, so a lot of the kills that Clementine goes for are like in the forehead, which I understand you want to kill the brain, but I still think the neck would be enough, right, to make it not a threat.
well, we do see that a few times in this episode, even too.
Sure. Yeah, I wonder why you would have to axe Sarita straight in the face while Kenny's looking at her and trying to tell her that it's going to be all right. I feel like you don't have to do...
It's not all right.
Yeah, I feel like you don't have to do the face. That's just mean to Kenny at that point.
Yeah. So, if it makes you feel any better, the first time I did play this game, I picked exactly this option.
Of course you would.
Because it felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But then, narratively, it's like, no, I guess this was not the right thing to do.
Yeah, in retrospect, it makes sense that you're like, okay, I should axe this zombie in the face, and then immediately after we're through, we should cut your arm off in a way that, like, we can put a bandage around it, and also in a way that you should be less screamy about it. Because you know it's happening, and you can just sort of brace yourself and bite a piece of wood or something.
Yeah, well, also, another thing that didn't even occur to me the first time was Mike is here, and they said Mike has done this before. He's the one who not only chopped off Reggie's arm, but Reggie said it seemed like Mike had done this before. So it seems like it could have been possible to get her to Mike, and Mike could be like, all right, let's get that arm off. But that's not the way it goes down.
So yeah, Sarita dies right here for me. And then through a lot of the next bit of the episode, Kenny, very mad at me. Like, really mad at me, which is, I don't want to say not understandable, but also on a logical level, I'm losing my patience with people who are like, okay, visibly bit though, right? And you have to do that, right? No? Like, are you disagreeing? Do you not remember what happened with Duck? Like, come on. I'm losing my patience for temper tantrums, Kenny. I understand that your second wife is a really rough loss in as many years. For sure. That sucks. But, like, mad at me, the 11-year-old who basically saved your life in the process? Come on.
Yeah, remember Crawford. Remember how you acted in Crawford.
Remember how you act shitty all the time? You're constantly doing it, so just assume you're doing it now.
Yeah, Mitch, you think you have it bad. Just wait until you hear what happened to me in my playthrough with Kenny.
Okay, yeah, so I don't know at what point the differences stop, so why don't you go ahead and you tell me what happened with Sarita for you.
Okay, so for me, Sarita... So I attacked the walker that was biting her, and Sarita's just like, uh-oh! So you guys get her out of here. Kenny comes in and gets her out of here.
Okay.
So it basically plays out the same, only Sarita is now there with Kenny. And Kenny's like, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna be fine. She's not gonna be fine. She's like noticeably sick. She's already dying.
Even like immediately after leaving the crowd of walkers?
Yeah, like she's already not looking very good. And Kenny gets so... He has the exact same reaction to Clementine either way. So, like, I can kind of see where he's coming from when you chop off Sarita's hand and get her, and she gets, like, bit by walkers because she screamed. Like, when you think about it, it's still not really... Clementine is the one who cut her hand off, but she's also the one who screamed.
Okay.
But if he has Sarita and she's dying, he says like the exact same things. He's just as mad at Clementine.
Really?
About it. And Clementine didn't even do anything that time.
It was your inaction.
Yeah, he... basically, that's how it feels. He says, like, don't you think you've done enough today? And I'm like, what happened?
Okay, you know what?
I don't know what happened.
I think this episode is bad. I'm turning around, and I actually think this might be the worst episode of The Walking Dead so far. Because that is so manipulative.
Yes.
I don't respect that. I don't respect the anger that you face from people that you're supposed to like actually not mattering what you do. Because if Kenny's mad at me, I in a sense I like that. In a sense, like, hey, this should be the consequences of my actions. But when it's not the consequences of my actions and it just happens, that sucks. That's nothing. Like, I can't feel a way about that.
I definitely totally agree. Like, it's one thing if she slices off Sarita's hand, that's still kind of a contributor to how she died. So I can understand Kenny being upset at Clementine for that. But this, you didn't do anything. She is the one who got bit.
So
don't blame me.
Okay, so she's sick. Does she turn in this episode?
She does not. Kenny takes her into the tent. He says his goodbyes and he makes sure she doesn't turn. I guess. We never, like, see or hear him, like, shoot Sarita, but you do see her lying in a pool of blood. I didn't get a good look at her. She's kind of positioned in a weird way. So I think they're trying to get across that Kenny made sure she didn't become a walker, but it is
So they had a conversation about it and then he killed her.
Well, it was all off screen if he did.
Got you. After that, is he still angry after that?
No, he calms down. I think was he still mad at you afterwards? Because for me,
there are aspects of it. Yeah.
Okay. For me, he was more calm. He wasn't like blaming Clementine for anything. But even then, it just seems so sloppily written that he would have in the first place when she did nothing to contribute to it.
Well, there's two conversations with Kenny where he's really mad at you. There's one where he's sitting on a fountain where you first meet up with him again after being separated. And then there's another a little bit later when he's inside a tent.
Yeah.
And so for you, in both of those, he's still very mad at you. But in
the second one, he was.
I don't know if it's the same thing that you talk about for both of us, but for me, it was him, Clementine, saying, "Hey, you really need to go help Rebecca."
Oh, and then okay, so how did Kenny react to that? I'm guessing not very well.
It was not very well at first, but with Clementine just continues to explain, like, hey, yeah, you know, maybe I fucked up. Nah. Maybe I fucked up. But also, hey, Kenny, you were a father and delivered and went to classes for Duck when Duck was fetal. So you need to go buck up and help the person that is currently alive and going to have a baby. And Kenny's like, all right, I'm still mad, but I'm gonna go do it, I guess.
I guess
I'm still mad at you, Clementine. You're 11. You should know better. You're a whole 11.
You're A11.
You're one whole 11 now, Clementine. Grow up.
So the way it went down for me is he was very mad in the fountain one. And the big difference is he has Sarita in his lap. He's watching over instead of her just not being there at all. But he says I've seen the way it plays out both times, and he says like the exact same stuff. He says, don't you think you've helped enough? And then he says, just because you're a little girl, you know, that whole thing. He says, you can't get other people killed. And yeah, I think that sort of reaction at least makes sense in what you did. It makes zero sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense for what I did. Like, I could see him reacting that way, but still it's like, okay, do you not understand that she was bitten and you think that I messed up and that she would have been fine even if bitten? Like, if I didn't do that, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in the conversation inside the tent, he had calmed down. I forget exactly what I said to him, but, he just talks about, like, what it's like to be almost beaten to death, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But then you look at his wound, his eye wound, and he's just like, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. So he was less angry, but it doesn't make sense that he was even angry with Clementine to begin with.
Yeah, it's kind of, it just feels bad. It just doesn't feel like a great Walking Dead choice thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the big problem that stands out, but there are a lot of other things I don't like in this episode.
Yeah. That's I think a fair way to describe this episode. So just talking about like how far the herd has been culled. Pete is gone. So Pete's gone. The Carlos is gone. Alvin is gone. Sarita is gone. Walter is gone. Reggie's gone.
It really feels like they're trying to up the body count in a way that doesn't really... Well, up until now it was fine, but in this episode they really start piling the bodies on in a way that I don't necessarily feel is like... Well, it's hard to say. In a storytelling perspective, it doesn't really feel natural. Mm-hmm. But I guess when you think about it, it's like, yeah, in an apocalypse, anyone could die at any time.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a story like this, it just doesn't work for me.
So this episode really works hard to make the inclusion of Mike from the last episode feel real. Mike, maybe the most so far, feels the most like, oh, you're part of the group? You're our best friend now. And I feel like I've missed a memo. I feel like I missed the years of traveling with Mike that should make me as good friends with him as I am now.
I agree, but I do like Mike. I think Mike is like a good guy. He's
now, but like he wasn't even this way when we met him.
Yeah, he was kind of rude, but I guess it makes sense when you're being kept in Carver's camp.
I felt like you would really like Mike because he has a quote from this episode.
Oh my God.
Well, that happened.
Jesus Christ. I was watching, I think it was Adam I was watching play it, and I was like, I fucking forgot he said that. Mike, I'm really trying to root for you, man.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know if we brought it up before, but that's my least favorite thing to say in anything. Mm-hmm. To the point where if it's done in like a comedic way, I'm like, yes, now I love it. But if you do it unironically like this, it's the worst ever. It's like, yeah, it did just have what's that supposed to convey? Fuck off.
Yeah, it's something. It's like the thing where if you're hanging out with your friends and something wild happens and your friends say unprompted, well, that just happened, and your friend like isn't trained in comedy and hasn't gone to open mic nights trying to make it as a stand-up comedian, and they don't read books, then they're just trying their best, and that's pretty good. That's all right. But hey, Walking Dead, you're written by professionals.
Yeah, don't just drop a line like that, please.
Well, that was something. Gee,
I'd even take that. I'd even take that over that happened.
Well, that's a fine how do you do.
Well, what do you know about all that?
Yeah, mine is my least favorite thing. I'm sure we've already talked about this on the podcast, is fine feather friend. When anyone says, well, how are you today, my fine feathered friend? Especially when it's like, okay, you're not a bird. You're just sort of saying it jokily as if it's a joke, but you're not a bird. What are you saying?
Mitchell.
I hate it so much.
I'm so sorry, because that's actually one of my favorite things to say for that exact reason.
It is the thing you're talking about. It's just it's not anything. All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in this episode that aren't anything, but
yeah, a lot of not so fine feathered friends in this episode.
So here's the backbone of the episode. We've been talking about character moments a lot, but here's the plot. You get through the horde of zombies, with or without Sarita. Carlos is dead. After you get through, you're separated from Luke, Sarah, and Nick, who are in one faction. You're with it's Clementine, Rebecca, and Jane. And Bonnie, Mike, and Kenny have already gotten to the place, the rendezvous point. So the first thing to do is just check in with Bonnie, Mike, and Kenny. Bonnie and Mike are fine. Kenny's pissed. Nick, Sarah, and Luke just haven't come back yet and don't seem to be on their way. So you and Jane go. I'm pretty sure it has to just be you and Jane, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you and Jane go and you rescue them. And it's a really fun feeling moment where clearly Jane is trying to exercise some of her memories of having a little sister. And teaching Clementine how to do the stuff. And she's having a way better time than normal because Clementine is smart. And the whole thing about Clementine is that she is not a helpless little sister like a Jamie type or a Sarah type. She's someone who, like, if you train her how to use a gun, she will be of equal use with that gun as you are. So she's having a great time. They totally spies this rescue of Luke and Sarah from
totally spies.
Yeah, I don't know why that's the thing I'm reaching for.
The episode would be called Walkers Much?
Well, that just happened. And I forgot to mention they do find Nick, and this is the way that they close off Nick's story. Nick is now a walker, and he's caught like in the chain link fence of this RV park.
Yeah.
And this is it's as good of a way as any to close off the story of a character who could be dead from a lot of different choices already.
Yeah, boy, I remember the first time I was like, fuck off. Like, it's, I guess it doesn't hit as hard because Nick was like, I don't want to call him barely a character because our good friend Courtney last night was doing a lot of talking about Nick, and I thought she had some good points about him, but
I think Nick was great during episode 2. From my perspective of having helped Nick instead of Pete, because why would I help a bitten? But Nick had some
even besides that, you know, he had the whole thing with Walter's friend. Like, there was a lot going on with Nick, but then, like, last episode, he's barely there, just piping up so you remember he's there. And then in this episode, he's dead immediately. Off-screen death. You don't even get to see it happen. And then once you kill him, once you attack his brain, he's just out of the picture. He's never brought up ever again.
He's brought up.
Not even a factor. Oh, right. They because Rebecca asks, where's Nick?
Yeah, a few people ask. And Luke asks, because Luke doesn't even know. From his perspective, he was taking care of Sarah in one of these RVs, holed up, and Nick was going to go out and try to run for help and come back. But I guess Nick, in life, got caught in the chain link fence and then was bitten by walkers.
He really didn't get far.
Because if he was bitten by walkers in the fence, and then, like, as a walker got stuck in the fence, which I think would make more sense, then he'd be facing the other direction. So he was just... He got himself stuck while conscious, while perfectly able-bodied. He was like, what's this fence doing here? There's a hole in it, and I don't even know. What do I go in the side of the hole?
Oh, now I'm in the hole? Oh, could this day get any worse?
Yeah, he's like an infomercial for hole cutters. Just like doing it the
Have
worst
you ever
possible
been
way.
Here? And yeah, I guess he's not that far away from where the others are, so I guess he went out to get help, immediately got stuck in the fence and killed. You cannot have like a less well, I'm sure you can have a less dignified death, but it would be hard to outdo Nick, I think. Well, also one thing I didn't even notice in previous playthroughs, I totally forgot about. Nick does get shot in the shoulder during the escape, but I
don't think it matters.
I don't necessarily think.
I don't think that contributed to this.
Yeah, he still managed to get away with everyone just fine. I don't think that ties into him getting stuck in a fence.
No, he just gets stuck in a fence. But you and Jane are now... You find a way... You find your totally spy's way into this RV, and Luke's trying to find a way out. There's a skylight, which you can crawl through and then get on top of the RV from there. But Sarah's just totally in shock, which is understandable considering that she just watched her father be shot in the face.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, she was already this way at Carver's because of just how rough that experience was. And now she watched her dad die. It seems very bad for Sarah. Mm-hmm. And the whole time that you're given the option to try to convince Sarah, like, okay, you should maybe get good. You think it through. Don't die for no reason. Die for a reason later.
Kind of.
I mean, like, give it a shot though. Living.
Yeah, give it like a couple hours. You'll be dead later.
And you're dealing with someone who's in shock, who was already neurotypical or neurotypical. Mm-hmm. Is that the word? Is that the order? Neuroatypical? Whatever. You know what I mean. Whatever she is dealing with is not specifically outlined in the episode, and I still think that it would be better if they said, like, hey, this is a specific thing rather than just immature for her age. But they don't.
See, I'm kind of on the opposite side. I feel like I actually think it's more interesting that they never say. They just kind of let you figure it out.
Well, if it was a mystery, I guess I'd feel that way. But I feel like if you're trying to speak to the human condition, make it a real aspect of human condition.
I get that.
Like, if she is autistic, say that. Or if she's schizophrenic, or if she has some crippling anxiety disorder, if she has something that is real and you're actually reaching for something, maybe you don't need to say that, but I think it would be important that you know what it is, and I don't trust the writers at this point that they necessarily know what it is.
This episode kind of makes you doubt the writers a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
But so you have to save Sarah and everyone else. You just have to get everyone out of there.
And the whole time, Jane is like, she can't be saved.
Let's go. Like, immediately. Just leave her. We gotta go. Who cares?
Yeah, no effort was made by Jane. Jane's like, hey, can you leave? And Sarah says no. And Jane's like, well, you heard her. She said so.
I'm out of ideas.
I've tried nothing, and I'm all out of ideas.
You know what's one thing that got me in this specific part? So you have barricaded the door with a bookshelf to keep the walkers out. But pretty soon you have to use that bookshelf to get up to the skylight. And that's fine and dandy, but one thing I never noticed before is there is another bookshelf in that room.
Yes, but it might have, in the defense of the game, it might have been bolted to the wall or something. I don't know. It might have been part of the wall. It's hard to say. These are RVs,
maybe,
not
but
like
I mean,
trailers.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I mean, this one wasn't. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it just seemed silly.
It did seem it seemed silly. And also,
obviously not a big
why
deal.
Push a bookshelf against a door in order to keep it closed if it doesn't stay closed if you stop pushing? That just means the thing that's keeping it closed is you pushing. You don't need the bookshelf. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? If the door isn't opening because there's something heavy in front of it, but you still need to push on the bookshelf in order to make it heavy enough, then it's you pushing that's stopping the door. The bookshelf shouldn't be required. The physics of it, I don't think check out.
I don't know. I can kind of get it. It adds a little something. Maybe they just needed... Because it's one thing to keep the door closed by pushing on it, but maybe just having the bookshelf helped them keep it closed, like in addition to pushing it. I don't know.
I don't think that checks out, because if the door would open if you didn't push it, then it's too light to be helpful.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You saw them do it.
Yeah, you're right.
I didn't write it.
You're right.
It obviously worked.
This is a documentary. It worked. It's real. You can eventually convince Sarah, like, hey, we're your family now, which means you have family, which means you're not alone, which means you need to live. And that seems to get through to her, at least for the moment. But yeah, the whole time Jane's saying, like, she's not gonna come, and you don't...
She's done for.
You haven't seen the end of it yet, Jane. Why...
I'll make the choice.
Why not try? It seems rude not to try.
Yeah, you're saying all this in front of Sarah without doing anything to contribute.
So you get out, and then it's you and Luke and Jane and Sarah walking through the forest back, and of course Jane on the way there is talking to Clementine, being like,
"Remember when I brought up Jane
you weren't
earlier?
right just because it worked out, Clementine."
Just because you were right doesn't mean you were right in the big way. Something else that I think is very weird here. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking to Luke on this walk, he mentions something. He says something like, I just went right up there, no questions asked. I didn't even think about it. Like, you can tell he feels guilty about it. You can tell he feels guilty about just going right out the skylight without helping. But earlier, Jane is the one who told him to go up because he could pull everyone else out of the skylight. So it's another thing that just doesn't add up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that can be some survivor's guilt. I'm not ready to take that one to court. That one it's whatever. Especially coming from Luke, who I think in this episode in general does make some decisions, but it feels like a more believable character with realistic wants and desires and motivations for doing what he does. Mm-hmm. Be them complicated and full of consequence as they are.
Yeah, it just struck me weird that the reason he goes up is because he's told to go up so he can help everyone else. And then on the way back, he's just like, oh man, I was just right on out of there. I could have... The way he says it, to me, felt like he was saying, like, I just thought about myself and tried to escape.
Yeah, except that's not even true, because he tried to give Clementine a boost.
Yeah,
and then his
exactly.
ribs are broken, so like it didn't work. So they had to get him out first.
Yeah, I don't know. It made me be like, I don't know if I care for that choice of words.
Yeah. So you get back and Kenny's still mad, but now Rebecca is having the baby. Her water broke. Mm-hmm. Rebecca, I have here in my notes, Rebecca cried for Nick, ? All right.
That's exactly how I felt too. It's like, Nick, not Nick.
Also, well, I mean, Rebecca's known Nick for a while, I guess, but there was
true.
Another moment earlier where I have in my notes, Mike says he's going crazy not doing anything for Kenny. Why does Mike care about Kenny at all?
Yeah, he just met him.
He just met him very recently.
Well, he's probably just sympathetic towards him because Sarita's been bit. Sarita's not or Sarita died. Either way,
Yeah, but it felt like Mike was saying, Kenny's my friend, man. And really?
You do not fuck with Kenny. I will take a bullet.
We've known each other since the 4th grade. He's my friend.
I left that part out before about how we knew each other.
We didn't want it to be a big deal, but yeah.
I see that as a joke, but considering Clementine and Kenny just happened to meet up with one another again, who knows? Maybe Mike and Kenny are real best buddies.
So you need water, you need blankets. You need a place for Rebecca to have the baby that's not exposed, and, they can settle down for a moment of peace, even though here by the fountain, you seem very fine compared to what will eventually happen. Where they go. So I think the moment of peace, time to settle down, would be where they are. But sure, they did bring up a just a gross idea that the zombies are going to smell all the afterbirth.
Ugh.
Which is something that, like, I'm glad you fictional characters are thinking about it, but I'm surprised I am.
I didn't need to be. I'm not part of this group, this little story.
Yeah.
Could have kept that to yourself.
But yeah, I mean, like you're pooping all the time. And that hasn't seemed to matter for zombies.
Yeah, they never bring that up once.
Yeah. Yeah, but just because childbirth is gross to some people, they're like, okay, well, let's make this the smelliest thing that we've talked about so far.
In the world of The Walking Dead, this is as bad a smell as it gets.
The walkers themselves are incredibly smelly, so it feels like they shouldn't be able to smell that much because they're like masking their own ability to smell other things.
They should have had a scene where the walkers smell the afterbirth and they're like, ew, let's not go over there.
Ew, is this from a woman?
Ew, gross. I know we smell bad, but pee, you.
So the group splits up again. Kenny stays with Rebecca to help coach her through the thing because he fathered a kid once, and I guess that makes you an expert in.
Well, they bring up that Kenny did help deliver Duck when he was born, so he's done it before. So I guess considering everyone else in the group, Kenny is the one to go to for it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess Sarah can't help at all, but she's the daughter of a doctor. You'd think that maybe she would have picked up some... I don't know. Anyway, there's a Civil War museum, and I really want to talk about this. Just the idea of a Civil War museum. And there's a Civil War, like, tourist trap kind of thing. 2 different buildings they can go to. Because I guess they've found themselves in the middle of the ruins of an actual Civil War battle.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It is called Amid the Ruins.
It seems that the ruins are both the ruins of society as we know it now, and also ruins of society that, like, the last time society completely broke down in America and houses were divided, which is another name from this season.
Wow, they really thought about it.
So Jane and you have the option to do this too. You go to this like gift shop thing, and it's up on a ledge with a deck. It would be very hard for walkers to get all the way up the stairs, except we find out later, not that hard. And it's shelter. It's very safe. And if you go with Bonnie and Mike, you do have to do both of these, but the order you can choose. You go to the Civil War Museum, where you will eventually find an old Confederate gray coat that you'll have to use as blankets. And you do find some big jugs of clean water.
Right. You also find a raccoon.
You try to eat it, you can't. And then you see that the raccoon has kids. And then Mike says, I still want to eat that raccoon.
Yeah, so, well, what Mike says before is, I would eat the shit out of that raccoon. And both Bonnie and Clem look at him like, okay.
You eat its shit, Mike? I guess that's
you eat shit
pretty
out
gross
of a raccoon?
for you. Yeah, there's a lot of just writing in this episode.
Yeah. Very funny.
That's not what I meant. Come on. Come on. Grow up.
Who is in charge? This is also the same scene with That Happened. So who was put in charge of the Civil War Museum scene?
I guess
Who
it all
wrote
revolves
that
around Mike, really.
Yeah, which sucks because overall I do like Mike enough as a character. He's the one who carries the water, remember?
He comes out of nowhere. He can carry anything. He is constantly doing Joss Whedon-esque quips. And you know what? I don't have any room in my heart. I've chewed through all my room in my heart, Mike.
Well, to be fair, you do make a lot of space considering all the characters who get left behind.
So, the Civil War thing. Civil War has been a major thematic element through both seasons so far of The Walking Dead. And I don't know if this is also something that comes up very frequently in the comics or the show. But the Telltale crew seem to really be leaning on this this metaphor of the Civil War, and in this episode in particular, it is very heavy-handed, like everything else in this episode. But I do think that it's a continuing thing from the very first episode of the first season. Lee has always said that he is a major student of the Civil War. He's really into Civil War history and in reenactments and stuff, which as a black man he found to be uncommon among his peers because the Civil War is about the idea of slavery, which the idea that a bunch of white people are fighting over your existence can feel pretty demeaning, I imagine.
Right.
But he's got this fascination with it. It doesn't really. It never came across that he viewed it in the way that I initially thought he might view it, because if you are written as a black man who is incarcerated, you might view the Civil War as the story of your freedom or something. And that doesn't seem like his angle. He never really did. He was always just thinking about it from the perspective of brothers fighting brothers. Just countrymen from the same country fighting each other. Which is what The Walking Dead's all about, right? That's it's not the walkers that'll really get you. It's mistrust among peers.
It's the living that'll get you.
I guess we are the real Walking Dead, huh?
Fuck you. I was gonna say that.
But yeah, and there's a constant reminder of, hey, why are we fighting each other when there's a real threat happening? And the metaphor there might be why is the North fighting the South when we have this real threat of slavery actually hurting so many Americans all the time? And from in season 2, that gets way stronger, where there's literally a divided house, where a house divided cannot stand. That's an Abraham Lincoln quote about the Civil War originally.
Yeah.
And now we're amid the ruins of the Civil War, literally. What do you think that means to you? Why do you think they're driving that so strongly?
I don't know. I guess I didn't really think about it.
All right.
I'm sorry to say. I think it's very interesting. I like. I guess it's interesting having those parallels. But there's just so much other stuff going on in these episodes. It never really came to mind. I'm sorry to say.
Sure. I think the way that we talk about the Civil War in popular culture now is that the North are the good guys and the South are the bad guys because the North was anti-slavery and the South was pro-slavery. And hey, you know what? I also feel that way. But
Yeah.
in this episode in particular, there seems to be a lot of reckoning at like both sidesisms and trying to this idea of like, hey, maybe both sides are right or both sides are wrong. Whoa. And I think the strongest metaphor for this is at the Civil War Museum. They find these old coats, and then Mike says, "But those are gray. Isn't that the color of, we can't put Rebecca in a Confederate coat?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think your first instinct as a survivalist at this point should be, shut up, Mike. It's a coat. The Civil War is 150 years ago, and we need a coat. So
yeah, and Rebecca does say, like, they bring that up in the gift shop later, and she says, "Do you really think I care about that?"
Yeah, which feels like such a strong point that maybe they're trying to make that I think I'm failing to grasp. I might be under-reading the episode here, because I don't understand this point.
Maybe it turns out this episode's great.
Maybe what they're trying to say... Here's what I would guess currently. What they might be trying to say with this Confederate coat is, hey, they're the bad guys, they're the good guys, whatever. Sometimes you just need to do what's right. And if that's what they're saying, they could really go ahead and not use the Confederate Army as their idea of like an easily graspable, hey, there's two sides to every story. Maybe they should not do that if that's what they're aiming for. But it feels like it should be smarter than that. Like, Telltale are not... This episode has had some rough writing, obviously. But mostly in the terms of like moment-to-moment dialogue, I don't feel like something as significant as this and planned out as this should be under-respected. I feel like there was an idea here with this coat, what this metaphor is, that I if it's just what I think it is, it's really dumb. This idea of like, hey, you know what? We're all mad at each other, but sometimes you just got to use your buddy's coat. Even if your buddy is like a slave owner, I guess. But yeah, because in the literal moment, yes, you do need to just use any old coat. It can't matter that it was part of an opposing army over 100 years ago. You need to deliver this baby. This coat is an important instrument in making that happen. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's you need to forget the axe that you're grinding. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's more or less just what I got out of it. Is just, look, we gotta really focus on what's important. Obviously,
I just think anything Civil War related is really loaded at this point in the story because of how often it's been brought up, how often it's been used as a metaphor. Yeah. So if you have to use a Confederate coat at this point to deliver the next generation of a baby in a Civil War gift shop, and it's just about the coat, it's just literally about like, oh, you should use a coat. That's wild to me. And it's so wild to me that I believe I can't believe that I'm not just misunderstanding it. I have to believe there's something to it that I don't get yet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe someone's talked about it. Maybe. Do you think anyone on this episode who wrote it talked about it?
J.T. Petty or Eric Sturp, maybe. I don't know their personalities. But could be. Jason Latino, the director, might have an idea.
But there are raccoons as well.
There are raccoons. So you come back from both of those adventures and you say, hey, we got water. We got coat, which is blankets. We have a place to deliver the kid. We got to get you there. But then a horde of zombies come, which is bad.
Hold on. We kind of skipped over a major part.
Which one?
When they meet Arvo when they're looking for the gift shop.
You're right. Say things
so
about
they're
it.
they're trying to get the gift shop open for shelter for Rebecca to have her baby. Jane is trying to get it open. Clementine is kind of looking around for anything that can help, but she sees someone coming up from down below. So she's like, "We gotta hide!" And so they do, and this kid comes up. We find out his name's Arvo. I keep wanting to call him Arlo, but it's Arvo.
It's Arvo. He's not a Paper Mario YouTuber puppet.
He's not a blue puppet man. But he has supplies with him, and you kind of get the jump on him. He pulls a gun on you, but it seems like you're kind of talking him down. You're like, "Look, I don't want to hurt you. I just want to talk." And this kid's Russian, but he speaks English, so he understands what you're saying, and you can understand him. So you're just kind of talking to him, and Jane ends up subduing him and stealing his gun. And boy, Jane just really wants to rob this kid.
Yeah.
We find out he has a sick sister that this medicine and supplies is for.
He might.
Yeah. But, yeah, so they don't know if he's telling the truth. He could be a big liar. But even then, I don't know. Jane really is like, "We gotta rob this guy." And, you know, at first it seems like, "Whoa, Jane, you're really taking this too far. We really just needed to talk to this guy." But she is kind of right about the things she said. It's not like she's doing it for purely selfish reasons. Like, you have people in your group who could use this medicine.
Yeah.
And it's not the right thing to do, but boy, you really do need it. So, what did you do? Did you rob Arlo?
I tried not to, but then Jane did
Arvo?
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's well, even then, I feel like that's exactly what happened to me too, but it didn't look like Jane even robbed him.
Yeah, that was my confusion too. It looked like Jane just sort of gave the bag back, but she might have taken some medicine.
If she took medicine, they sure didn't show it, and you watched. Like, he got the bag back and left. And
I could imagine some sleight of hand. Like, maybe in universe, Clementine didn't even know until it kind of came back to bite her later.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you have the option to straight up just rob him for fun.
Yeah, and you know, obviously I didn't, but I do think this... I think it's a smart choice to be like, well, everyone in your group, Kenny has his eye bashed in, Rebecca's about to give birth, she's already not looking very good. Who else in your group was hurt? I think there was someone else. Oh, Luke with after having the shit kicked out of him by Carver.
Did you say Rebecca? I mean, Rebecca's terrible.
Yeah, Rebecca is who I said she's going to be giving birth, and
is Rebecca going to be? Yeah, I thought you were saying everyone else is giving birth. That makes sense.
Everyone else
that
is
makes
giving
a lot
birth.
more sense.
Yeah, and they say beforehand she's already not looking very good. She's already it seems like things are kind of taking a toll on her. So it would be a really good idea for you to steal this stuff, especially knowing what's going to happen later.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't. I still didn't.
Okay. You played to your convictions. I respect you for it. We're even. We're back even.
Yeah. I mean, Clem, I don't feel like would steal from this guy, and even then, like, what would you would gain this medicine, sure, but you're taking it from this kid. He's saying his sister is sick. He could be lying, but like, what if he's also not? You'd be sentencing this person to death if you didn't let him take this medicine that he had.
Well, more than just believing Arvo or not. At this point, I'm actively trying to spite Jane. Like, Clementine says, "Hey, let's talk to him," and then Jane says, "What if I do a lot of different stuff?" And you know what, Jane? Calm it. Calm it
What if
down.
instead I point a gun at this guy and steal everything he has?
Calmez-vous, Pierre. You need to really chill it.
Yeah, she does not stick to the plan.
Yeah. So yeah, as you can tell, that does come to bite you later. So you get all this stuff after all those things, and you're headed toward the gift shop again. This time there is a zombie like horde on your tail. They're fighting you on the way there. Kenny thought for a second that he could take all of them out with one crowbar, and then realized that there's more than one of them.
and he really wails on this one walker, so that's also not gonna work to take out all the other ones.
Yeah, he's spending a lot of time on the one. It kind of recontextualizes Carver's death scene a little bit, because Kenny's he spent such a long time killing Carver with like direct blows to the face, and at the time it felt like, oh wow, he really hates this guy. But now watching him do that to one walker, it kind of feels like, oh, Kenny just doesn't kill people very fast.
He's just not
just
great
takes his
at
time, and that's going to be a problem actually.
Now that I think about it, a gun would probably be more useful.
Probably more useful. Does attract them, but they're already in the area, so that part's done.
Yeah.
I don't know what set them off to attack this area. I don't know why a whole horde of them is on their way right now. Maybe...
Yeah, they didn't do anything to alert them.
Maybe they can smell the labor in practice.
We smell a baby!
Yeah, it's the smelliest thing in the world, I guess. So... Even though it's not born yet.
Let's go over there. Yeah, it's still inside.
Mm-hmm. So they go back to the gift shop and they found out that the reason the walkers have closed in is because Luke has been abandoning his post of trying to like kill every stray walker in the area he sees because he wanted to have sex with Jane. What a betrayal of trust from both parties, doing a real dumb thing. For no reason, when they could have just waited a little bit, probably.
Yeah, you could have just done that later.
You could have just done that later.
That seems like a weird thing for Jane to do. Because Luke says Jane is the one who proposed it. That seems like a weird thing for someone who's so gung-ho about surviving.
I believe it. I feel like that actually makes sense in a certain kind of way. Like if she's so gung-ho about surviving, she's probably going to be like, I'm viewing this in the same way I view extra medicine I could have, or food or water I could, chance upon. I need to be opportunistic about this opportunity.
Okay, I guess I get where you're coming from.
But still, clearly a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And
Jane has so far had, like, pretty good ideas. She's the one who finds the shelter. She teaches Clem, take the walkers out at the knee and then go for their head. She's been pretty on the up and up.
Well, she's also said there's no way to save Sarah for reasons that don't make sense. And she said, actually, Clementine, have you considered being all alone?
That would be really great for an 11-year-old girl like you.
Yeah.
To just be on your own.
I see you more as like a cool loner type with no friends. So
you can be just like me.
You could be just like me, a cool loner type with no friends. Who's living for nothing.
Pretty cool.
So Jane's had she's been very practical, but she clearly does not have a team mindset.
Right.
So I kind of understand this coming from her. From Luke, it seems very dumb. Like, Luke, hey, you know that there's like zombies out there and you're supposed to kill them. You know that.
Yeah, Luke was the one who was given a job. Jane already did her job. She can have sex all she wants. She's put in her time for the day. Luke is still on the clock.
she's just in any old time. Jane, you're clearly fine. Just keep doing it. But Luke, not allowed.
If it were anyone else, if Nick were still here, he could do this, but you are on walker duty.
And maybe Jane said something to Luke like, hey, if it's not now, it's probably going to be never because I'm going to leave. Which she does end up doing.
No. Well, Luke doesn't know she's leaving, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Jane might have said that, and then Luke's like, I don't know if she will or not. So maybe I should jump on the opportunity and not call her bluff. He does phrase it as an opportunity, and Jane offered, which is a really weird way to describe sex. But I guess I get it. You know, it's true for Luke in his case.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense since it's not like these two have any sort of relationship. She's probably just like, hey, want to screw around? And he was like, golly, okay.
Yeah, like she lost a bet. It feels like the... yeah, fine, whatever. It's...
you lost. You have to have sex with Luke.
This is the third time I've lost a bet and had to have sex with Luke in this week.
Damn it.
So as soon... Clementine, like, sees them putting their pants back on, and she's like, Luke, come on! And then everyone is like, Luke, come on! You child. you children.
You absolute fool.
So they seem very sheepish about the whole thing. Everyone moves into the space they were just in, which I'm sure makes it more awkward. And the zombies are coming. So they're like breaking down the gate that they're able to close at the top of the stairs. But they realize eventually they have to just drop the deck. They have to drop the supports on the deck to make it fall down on all these zombies to prevent them from walking into the place.
Well, that's also after we have our next major character death.
Yes. Well, I thought it was part of this.
No, so what happens first is they're moving the cannon to keep the walkers out. And I guess that makes that part of the deck just collapse.
Yeah, the deck has held the cannon for probably 100 years, but right now, with the cannon in a slightly different part of the deck, it's butter. For some reason.
We didn't prepare for the cannon to be over there.
Yeah. This deck is for this cannon. It is built for the cannon. And the cannon being in a slightly different place of the deck, and 2 thin wire supports being cut off, are all that is required for this deck to completely disintegrate.
You've sealed your own fate by when you move that cannon an inch.
I can't with, like... It happens so much in this game, and it's a dumb thing to get hung up on, but, like... I know what wood is. You know? Like, I know what...
This isn't a foreign concept.
Yeah, you can't be like, well, you don't know how the physics of this walker infection work, so we can, you know, say an amputation works in this case and it doesn't in another case. Like, yeah, that's fine. But, like what we were talking about with the physics of the door opening. Or, I believe in last season we talked about, like, that wire that was holding the doors shut in the hotel room in episode 5. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And in this one, like, the cannon being in a slightly different part of the thing, none of this works. none of that is... It's just silly at that point. That, like, you couldn't think of a better reason for the deck to collapse. Like, maybe anything else could have happened. There could have been a pretty light silly fire. Episode. There could have been some other things. Like, yeah, the slapstick on a cannon that has just been there for years, moving to a slightly different part of where it already was, making it fall through the deck, doesn't make sense.
I guess maybe just that part of the deck was really weak and torn away, and moving a heavy cannon to that part of it just makes the whole thing just crumble. Right.
That's nonsense. That is what I'm talking about. That doesn't make any sense. That's nothing. I just don't... Yeah, it's dumb to get hung up on it, but, like, there's so many... I guess I'll call it, like, understanding of what materials are in this game that it's hard for me to keep up with and continue to let my guard down around.
Right.
But yeah, through this hole that the cannon creates, The much bigger part of this scene than Wood being weird is Sarah falls through and then Jane almost falls through and she's holding on. Tell me, what did you do in this moment? Because you have the option to tell Jane, go save Sarah, or you can pull Jane back up.
So you pulled Jane back up is what you said. I told Jane to save Sarah.
How'd that go?
Not very well.
Okay, but...
She did. So she was trying to save Sarah. She was like, come on, Sarah, we gotta go. And Sarah's like, no, I can't. I can't. Blah, blah. And Jane's like, well, come on, can you please? What if I say please? And then one of the wood planks from up above falls down and conks Jane in the head.
And then Jane dies?
No, she doesn't die. She just kind of goes, oof! And leaves and stops trying to help Sarah. She has to get out of there because, like, you see blood from the impact, so she's not doing too good.
Okay.
And then, walkers just swarm Sarah and chomp her and eat her.
Okay, so this is not a real Sarah or Jane moment. It's interesting how often they want to do these moments of, like, do you save your friend or the good one that could actually help you? And depending on how you're feeling, you could go one way or another. But they don't actually do the thing you think they do.
Yeah. It seems like this season in particular, they're really trying to turn the choices you make on their head.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure when they were thinking about it, they were like really proud of. I'm sure they were like, what if you were told that you could cut off someone's hand and it would save them, but now instead they're going to die immediately after?
Yeah. I think that there might have been pushback from the writers, especially with the lead writers leaving after season 1. There might have been some pushback against like the rigidity of the choices in season 1, where they're like, okay, you think that your choices are always kill one person or kill the other person in order to save the other one. But in maybe in a real situation, any action that you do is more like save both or kill both because you're trying to be more strategic. And maybe a lot of actions don't do anything at all. And I understand that move. I think it does seem more bold. It seems more I guess it seems more legitimate of a choice, because that's how choices in the real world actually function a lot of the time. I can see that.
Yeah.
But it does not add up to what season 1 was doing with the importance of those choices.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel good afterward. It doesn't feel good to be like, all right, I'm going to use what I learned to make this choice. This is how I feel. And then we're like, we got you. You suck.
Yeah, season 1 was all about being a good person in situations where it's hard to be a good person. And I don't think I even really understood that that's what season 1 was all about until it all kind of collapsed in on itself in episode 5. And that is part of why, maybe objectively speaking, The Walking Dead season 1 is probably Telltale's best game and deserves all the acclaim it got. It's amazing. It's really good. And I'm not sure I quite understand season 2 yet. To me, it just seems like, okay, for real though, can you survive? So far. Maybe in episode 5 there will be a similar thing. I don't know. You do. But I don't know how these choices are going to coalesce, if they're going to try that same approach or whatever. But in the meantime, it just kind of feels like the more legitimate and realistic you make the systems of a game, the less it makes sense as an artistic project, because all of a sudden all the creativity, all the pushing that you've been doing for it to talk about one or more greater ideas through the gameplay, through the story, through the choices, through every aspect of it, the more it doesn't come through. Because it's just realistic now. So now you're in a simulator rather than a work of art. And if we're pushing that further from here on out, that'll be interesting to see how it goes. Next episode, we're going to be talking with your roommate, Andrew, who is known on the greater internet presence as Secret Agent Ape, who is a well-known game designer in his own right.
Right.
And I'm excited to see what he has to say about season 2 of The Walking Dead as a whole, because when he like kind of beelined it through all 4 seasons when we started doing The Walking Dead.
Yeah, he just plowed through the whole series.
And he very specifically wanted to talk about season 2 and why he liked it more than I think a lot of other people in the Walking Dead fandom, I guess, liked it. I wasn't really connected to the fandom, so I didn't know like how much seasons 2 or 3 or 4 were supposed to be viewed, like how good they were supposed to be compared to the first one. But Andrew really liked it, and he sees something in it that is going to be interesting. So everyone stick around for that. But for now, I think it's time to get into our segments.
Well, no, there's one more thing that happens right at the
Yeah,
end.
do we have to? It's so long. The episode's so long now.
I know.
All right. All right. Oh, also, Rebecca has the kid, and it's a boy.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole thing. Whatever.
And Jane leaves, regardless of what happened.
Yeah, she just says, I can't be here no more. I gotta leave.
Yeah, and Luke is upset about that, because then he won't have any more sex.
Now I can't have any sex. Not even one.
Yeah, he could try with Kenny. I just don't think Kenny's going to be into it. And
he's not really in the mood after this episode.
Yeah, he'll say, Luke, I'm not in the mood. That's how it's going to come out. I'm in no mood, Luke.
Clem, I'm really worried about Kenny. Can you talk to him?
So, like 4 days go by. You stayed with Rebecca for a while. She was trying to get better, but she's actually only gotten worse.
Whoops.
Yeah, oops. As she's been raising this baby.
So you chose to stay a little bit and let her
Oh, I
rest
forgot that was a
rather than
choice.
leaving.
Yes, I waited some extra days.
I also did.
I doubt it mattered.
Yeah. We've seen enough about how this game works.
Yeah. Eventually you get cornered by Arvo, who says, hey, Clem, hi, how are you? How's your...
What up?
And Clem's like, how's your sister? And then he goes, oh, yeah, a sister. And and it's revealed that it was an ambush, and like a bunch of Russian people, Russian-speaking people just come out of the woodwork with guns, all trained on the whole group, which at this point is Rebecca, the baby, Clementine, Bonnie, Mike, Kenny, Luke.
This is quite a scene because they all immediately pull out their guns too, so it's just this massive group of people all pointing guns at one another.
Here's the thing. I'm not a big violence guy. I don't like guns. I wouldn't own a gun. If I did have a gun trained on someone and they started to pull out their gun, I would shoot then.
Yeah.
I would not let them get another gun trained on me that quickly.
We had a whole circus of guns here.
Yeah, again, I'm not one to use a gun, but I just think that if you have the gun and you're clearly wanting to use it, there might be something to that of you should use it then.
Yeah, but I guess it just comes down to like we are surrounded by these guys. If a single person shoots, then everyone's gonna shoot, and then there's gonna be a lot more carnage than there has to be.
So...
Especially when you have a baby with you.
Yeah, well, speaking of the baby, at this point, Rebecca is taking a sit down on a tire nearby. And she sort of slumps over and takes a little nap, which turns into a very long nap, because she just sits down and dies, I guess.
Yeah. And boy, it turns out this infection, the walker taking over, really doesn't take too long, does it?
No,
'cause it's like a few seconds.
We saw that on the last season, like the second episode of the last season, when the guy who was bit out in the forest just comes back and nearly kills Katya because he like lies down and then gets right back up as a zombie.
That's true.
Yeah, and for some reason, like,
I
he
forgot all about
already
that.
looks dead in the face, like he's decomposed somehow in that 1 second.
It happened real
Yeah,
fast.
Rebecca does that too, which is kind of like, guys, come on, she hasn't even decomposed a little bit yet.
Yeah. So a walker holding a baby is not a good sign.
Yeah, so you have the option at the very, very end to either shoot Rebecca or yell, "Hey, Rebecca's a zombie now." And whether or not you shoot, someone else shoots for you.
Yeah.
So another cool non-choice.
Yet another one.
And because you're in this Mexican standoff, and someone shoots, everyone just all of a sudden shoots because tensions are very high, and you don't want to be the second one shot, right? You want to be the first one shooting.
Yeah.
But they cut to black, so you don't see who in the party got killed.
Yeah. Boy, what an episode this is going to be starting out next time.
Yeah. Choices. Let's talk about our choices. The 5 major ones.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, what I thought was the most important choice in the episode, my choice cut even, not on the list of 5. And not because it's a small incidental thing, because it's huge. I thought it was big, but I guess the game didn't.
Well, why don't we do our choice cuts first in that case?
Okay, well,
so we can talk about that one and why you think it's so big.
No. Let's not do that. Sorry. No, I'm using my old improv technique, no but.
That is the other way to do it. If you don't yes and, you know but.
Just to get these out of the way, because again, I didn't think they were especially big compared to this other one, but I saved Sarah at the trailer park. You can leave her behind, which is maybe a more sensible way for her to die, honestly, given the way that we see her die eventually.
Yeah, but I saved her, even knowing what comes later, just because.
Yeah.
I don't know, just feels right.
I saved her just because what Jane is saying, I don't buy it. You know, like, if
there's no saving
if the
her.
walkers are about to come through, they're like in the doorway inside the RV into the space that you're in, then yeah, we'll leave her. But like, we've got some time.
Yeah, I'm just imagining this playing out in a way where like the walkers haven't even noticed them yet, and they're like, "Come on, we gotta leave Sarah behind. There's no saving."
Yeah, maybe Jane just doesn't like Sarah.
This is her way of saying it without saying it.
Oh no, Sarah. Anyway.
Oh man, that sucks.
More food for us, though. Am I right? Did not rob Arvo. That's
also did not rob Arvo.
Crawled through ticket booth window.
So you did crawl through the ticket booth window.
Yeah.
This seems like such a nothing choice.
Yeah. So did you not do it?
No, I did do
okay.
it. But boy, I forgot that it was one of these choices they have at the end.
Yeah. So this is at the Civil War Museum. There's a ticket booth that you see the water jugs inside of, but the opening of the ticket booth, like, it only opens a little bit, so Clementine, of course, is volunteered to go in, but wouldn't you know it, there was a walker in the ticket booth that was being very quiet up till now.
Well, what I think is very funny about this is Clem doesn't really volunteer at first. At first, Bonnie says something like, you know, if only someone were small enough, they could probably fit through here. And then you're just kind of sitting there next to him, and her and Mike are like, gosh, you know, maybe...
We're all
maybe
adults,
I could just...
except, wait, Bonnie, Bonnie's an adult, and yes, I am.
And if we're both adults, It's so funny because even then, you can have Clementine say like, "All right, I'll go." Like she knows they're really laying it on thick, trying to hint.
The writers of this episode, I think the reason I'm more frustrated with it than normal is because yes, there's all of these sort of failings of dialogue that we've talked about before, but then also there's like calling out the other writers of the series that are like, oh, we always have Clementine go in a small space. And it's like, you don't get to make fun of the other episodes if this is what you're doing. You don't get to
Yeah.
You don't get to make that that sort of veiled insult.
Yeah, up until now, I have enjoyed Season 2. I've thought Season 2 has been pretty good so far. This is the one time where I'm like, well, you tripped. You did not do this one as good. I don't necessarily think you can make these kinds of jokes.
Yeah. Held baby. I did hold the baby.
I did hold the baby as well.
When Rebecca gave birth to why would you not hold a baby?
Yeah, that also feels like another one that's like, do you need to have that in these final choices?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you didn't really have much to pick from.
And I can just hold a baby later. I can just hold this baby tomorrow, or like if I don't now, that's not a choice.
Yeah.
And then the last one is did not shoot Rebecca. So I yelled help, and then Kenny shot Rebecca.
Okay, I did shoot Rebecca.
Okay, I totally understand that, and I honestly felt a little weak when I did not shoot Rebecca, because I was thinking like, oh man, if I don't shoot, is she gonna bite this baby? But luckily, in my case, it was another nothing choice.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think that you made the right call there. I do regret that one a little bit, but also it worked out.
It really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So my choice cut was saving Jane when Sarah died, because again, I know that it didn't matter. And we
doesn't that feel like one that should be one of these?
Yeah, clearly, especially when one is held baby. Like okay, these 4 major choices at the end, or 5 major choices at the end. One of them is save Sarah at the trailer park. That's legit. Then the other 4 are did not rob Arvo. Well, Jane will anyway. Crawled through ticket booth window. Okay, well, if you don't, you get in anyway.
That was a big one.
If you held baby or not, nothing changes. It never matters. If you don't shoot Rebecca, Kenny shoots Rebecca, and it's still fine. It's still taken care of. So, like, 4 out of the 5 major choices, 80%, are not any of any importance.
That I didn't even think about that, but you're so right, and that makes me dislike this episode even more. When we started, I was like, you know what, this episode, it's not the worst. It is probably the worst Walking Dead so far, but it was But the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, this was a really weak episode.
Yeah, and frankly, I was excited about this episode because I thought like, hey, we're maybe going to build up some bonds between the characters, and we do a little bit. And I knew a little bit about the Civil War motif being strong in this episode. So I was thinking, oh, that's gonna maybe come to a head. They've been teasing that a lot of this just Civil War stuff. Omid was into it, Lee was into it. And yeah, it was a little disappointing, and also really genuinely sad for most of the time. So yeah, so my choice cut was still saving Jane when Sarah died. Now I know it didn't mean anything. It would have been the same either way. But yeah. I was feeling at that point kind of like, you know what, Jane, what you've been saying this whole episode of like, eventually I will have to just let Sarah die and it will be sad if I don't kind of get ahead of it. It happened. You're right. And I saw it happen when I chose to save Jane. That said, if I could see the other side of that choice and realize it didn't matter, it would not be my choice cut. I'm kind of just giving it the benefit of like, from someone who's only playing through it once and not necessarily talking to anyone about it ever. From that perspective, it was my choice cut.
Yeah, you know what? I gotta say, our segments this week, I had a hard time answering any of them. Because this episode's just, it doesn't really make a strong case for anything.
Yeah.
My choice cut was just whether or not to steal from Arvo, just because I of the choices in the episode, I did like that it kind of made me think about, like, it's not right to do this, but also it would be very helpful if we do this. Like, it'd be one thing if Jane is, like, stealing for her own selfish reasons, but she has everyone else's best interest in mind when she's saying we should rob this guy. So it did kind of make me think about whether or not it should be done. But yeah, it doesn't really matter either way in the long run.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to view it in a more generous lens of like, okay, most of the choices that felt like choices that could have ramifications in this episode don't. So, if that's the case, pretend at least that it's not a failing of the design. Maybe this is on purpose. What would that mean? What's that saying? That you can make as many choices as you want and you just can't affect things? That does maybe accurately portray the helplessness of their situation. I could see that design choice.
Yeah.
Maybe that was in their heads when they were making the episode. I don't know how valuable that is as a message outside of this context, but
yeah,
I could see that as maybe a reason that happened.
Like, sometimes no matter what you do, it's just not gonna be good.
You can't keep blaming yourself or your own choices, because a lot of things in the universe just have a way of filtering through and happening the way they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Except no one's ever time traveled, so we don't know if that's true.
Yeah, did you think about that one, Walking Dead writers?
We don't know if everything's always supposed to happen the way it's going to happen. That's never been tested. We've never had... There's no reason to assume that. Maybe it could have happened a completely different way if time went differently. We don't know if there's some fantastical fate force out in the universe that's trying to enact a singular destiny.
Yeah.
You ever think about that, Telltale?
Mitch, I guess you should have kept that one in mind. Before we continue our segments, do you mind if I backtrack a little and talk about a couple things in my notes I wanted to bring?
Okay, yeah.
I feel like out of all the deaths in this episode, I think Sarita's is the only one that feels like it really has any weight to it.
You think Sarah's doesn't?
Because it just happens so fast, and as soon as Sarah's dead, they're like, oh, look at the baby.
Maybe if Sarah died in the trailer park, it would feel worse.
Maybe. Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it might just have to do with some of my decisions. Because that's another thing. Like, Sarita, for you, died immediately. She was swarmed by walkers.
Right.
For me,
a really good way to start a day.
We had more time. Yeah. So for me, we had more time. Sarita was dying, but you could kind of let it soak in a little more. Kenny had time to say goodbye. You could think about what's going on with her. But then, like, Nick dies off screen, and then you just so unceremoniously take him out. And it's just like, all right, well, that's Nick, everybody. Give him a hand.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like Sarah also, like, they make such a big deal about getting Sarah to toughen up. And when I first played this, it really felt like they were building to something with Sarah. Like, you have to teach Sarah that she needs to be strong to survive in this world. And that, obviously, that's where it's going to go. No, she just dies either way. It doesn't matter. She's whatever. And that really rubbed me the wrong way the first time I played. It still does, but I guess just since I knew it was coming, it just... And then Rebecca dying at the end, you know, it happens. That's the very last thing that happens, so there's not time for it to have any weight right now. And I forget if it does in the next episode. But yeah, it just feels like there's so many deaths in this episode, and the only one that really felt like narratively it had that much of an impact was Sarita.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's just a weak episode.
They wanted to
I think
feel
episode 3 was so strong.
Yeah, episode 3 was really good. We had so much to say about that. And then this one, it's not even just like one thing. It feels like it's just like so many little failings throughout the episode. It just doesn't feel like it succeeds in any way.
Yeah.
But that's showbiz, I guess.
That's showbiz. Earlier, I had brought up around season or episode 1 or 2 of this that I predicted that the season would all be centered around Carver as a villain.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything.
Well, I don't necessarily think I'm wrong yet.
Okay.
He's dead.
Oh, we were talking about this the other day.
Yeah, it came up, and I felt like we should bring this up if we're touching on new notes. But yeah, so Carver died right before the end of episode 3 of this season, which does mean that there's 2 whole episodes entirely post death of Carver. I'm trying to view this episode, especially with a lot of the Civil War imagery here, as a reflection on Carver. I think that self-deluded justification for slaveholding in the Civil War might be trying to bring that out here a little bit in Carver and in the Howe's hardware store thing. He's got all these reasons that everything he's doing is okay, and why it's okay for him to beat and imprison and kill his own people, just because, it's for the greater good, and he's got this divine right to do so, maybe. And maybe in the sense of, like, looking back at what happened there, Clementine's group kind of doomed everyone that stayed there to die, because they had to just, like, shoot away all these zombies. Maybe they lived, I don't know yet. Probably, if they don't show it again, I'll assume they did not make it.
Boy, what a way for the 400 Days characters to go.
Yeah, I guess I hope you were a Bonnie storyline fan from 400 Days.
All those Bonnie stands.
So all of those, what they did in that episode, in episode 3, was they determined that their own freedom was worth potential casualties, and fighting for freedom was important. And that is a very pertinent Civil War theme to go on. So in the case of the Civil War metaphor in this case, like, who are the Confederates? I guess that would be Carver. And that would be people who try to lead this, quote, better life, unquote, at the expense of the freedom and happiness of others. But, like, yeah, they're safe, and they are economically secure because they've got all these cans of food and all these resources and everything in this big store. So maybe if Carver represents the Confederacy, giving the Confederate coat to Rebecca, especially when she doesn't know, maybe it's Alvin's kid or maybe it's Carver's kid, maybe that's why, maybe that's related to it. Maybe, like, the mystery of who this kid's father actually is what ties into the coat. I'm thinking this through as I'm saying it to you. This is a brand new thought. I don't have this in my notes anywhere, but I'm thinking, okay, if she's now okay with, like, okay, you know what? Carver was there. We did have sex. It was a thing. It could have been Carver, but I'm okay with it because now I'm seeing that this baby is more important than that.
Right.
Because Carver is the Confederate coat.
I get what you mean, but what a sentence to say.
Yeah. What's your golden moment?
Well, hold on. I have one last note.
Okay.
I have one last note I wanted to say. So I have it in my notes. The part where Mike says, "Well, that happened." I wrote that, and then after that, I followed with, "Eat my whole ass."
Yeah.
That's all. I just wanted to make sure I got that one.
So is that your golden moment, though?
No. Boy, I was really struggling to think of a golden moment just because I don't think anything really in this episode hits very hard. So I guess I just went with the birth of the baby, because, like, that's at least, like, something. That's at least, like, a hopeful situation. That's something good happening to these characters in this endless sea of misery. So it does stand out, but even then, like, This was the hardest segment for me to figure out. I was thinking about this for like 15 minutes.
So mine was when Luke and Jane fucked. I was very, very mad at them, and it felt like a very like realistic thing that could happen in this situation, and everyone else's reactions to them felt real. Which after an episode of like Jane saying some weird stuff about having to be alone, and Kenny like throwing his temper tantrums about your wife's dead, whatever.
Yeah, this is actually a time for Kenny to be.
People are angry, and it like makes a lot of sense. And they give Clem some really good dialogue choices after this, where Luke's just trying to say to Clementine, "Hey, it just sort of happened. We weren't." And then he cuts off because Clementine just says, "Shut up, Luke."
Shut up.
And
Luke.
then after
day.
Sarah dies and Jane, if you help Jane back up, Jane's like, "This is what I meant. Sometimes you have to let go." And then Clementine can just say, "Shut up, Jane."
What the fuck?
And those reactions to those people just being shitty is my golden moment.
That's funny. I like that. Those are good golden moments. I guess they're as good as any from this episode.
Yeah. Weekly guy.
Weekly guy. Who is your weekly guy?
Sarah.
Yeah, I gotta give it to Sarah.
It's a weak one. Maybe Rebecca, but I think it's Sarah.
No character really brings it in this episode, but I was at least like invested in what was going on with Sarah.
Yeah, maybe the Confederate coat has absorbed more of my thoughts than any one character has, so that might have been it, actually.
Well, you're gonna love episode 5, where it absorbs the magic of the world and turns into a talking Confederate coat.
Oh man, I would love it if the rest of Walking Dead got really Sam and Maxie and just sort of the villain of this season was a talking coat the whole time.
Who would have guessed? I would give it to him. That would be very stupid, but very entertaining.
You don't, quote, gotta hand it to him. It's... All right, well, that's been the episode. I hope that we have a more positive outlook on Season 2, Episode 5, the finale of The Walking Dead Season 2. We will, again, be joined by Andrew Wetzel, who joins us to talk about his thoughts both on that episode and Season 2 as a whole. Expect it to go long, probably. I think this is going to be I don't really know if this is supposed to be a good season finale or a bad one or whatever, but there's a lot to think about with Season 2 in general, with what it tries to do. So I hope you tune in for that. Remember, in order to further the likelihood that you keep listening to this podcast, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever podcast solution that you use to listen to this show. I'm sure there is a subscribe option there. So go ahead and do that. And again, wherever you find us, if you could rate us, that'd be great. Leave a review, tell a friend, tweet it out, mail your senator, whatever you gotta do to get more people listening to the show. We'd really appreciate that. It goes a long way. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Goodbye!